I'm Ashley.
And I'm Sadie. We are in Ashley short today. She's super busy. The competing season has started, so her schedule's a little nuts. So you guys get to be blessed with just our lovely voices today.
Just the two of us.
Yeah. Today's episode is going to be really fun. It's kind of a spur of the moment one that was sparked off by something I'm going to have Duncan talk about here pretty soon. But we're going to be talking about the life of a MILF, a mom in love with fitness, as I like to call it. Just kind of some of our struggles and just stuff that we've had to overcome, stuff that we've learned, and hopefully help you guys also learn and power through on your health and wellness journey, while also managing being a mom, whether that's a single mom, a mom with a parent, working mom, stay-at-home mom, all types of mom challenges.
Yeah. Yeah, being a mom's hard. Yeah.
It is.
So it's crazy. So a former teammate of mine, and I don't know if she listens or not. So, but anyway, she had posted the other day on either Facebook, Instagram, social media. She had gotten this horrible letter, and it was a handwritten letter from somebody. I don't know if they dropped it off in her mailbox, on her front door, in her car. I don't know. Handwritten letter by somebody who pretty much was just tearing this woman apart, talking about how she was being a bad role model to her daughter, because she was incorporating her daughter into her gym time, and just kind of ripping her apart about the way she looks, what she chooses to do with her appearance. This woman is very attractive. I know her personally, and she is so sweet, but good looking gal. And this letter, it just kind of, to me, being an outsider, just reading it, reeked of jealousy, of course. But the part that, just stood out to me was, like, gosh, like, you're bringing her daughter into this, which you have no idea what this mother goes through. And then on top of that, this mother, she lost her husband. And, you don't catch that until later, when this woman shared the letter and then kind of shared her rebuttal or her response, which was classy written response. And she shares, that nobody knows what it's like for her to go through, losing a spouse. And so, because one of the things that was in that letter was, this single mom had the most self-care that this person had ever seen, or something along those lines.
I think it was like the most time for self-care this person's ever seen for someone that's like a single mom or whatever.
Single non-working mom. And and this woman is a nurse practitioner, to remind us. So gosh, first of all, like, such a hateful thing to say.
Mm-hmm. And I don't even know her in it. Just reading it, like,
yeah, like,
that made me mad.
Wrong with people?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think too, it just is a good example of people are so quick to criticize. And I think we see this, and we'll get into this, like the health and fitness or bodybuilding for sure. People on the outside, they don't understand. And so it's very easy to start pointing fingers and to criticize and judge. But you never know the path that somebody has walked through and gone through. And so, yeah, I think it's so hurtful. And we just see it all the time on social media. We see it in person. We see it in the workplace.
Yeah, especially that, I get asked a lot too, like, well, don't you feel bad for taking this much time away from your kids to go to the gym, to work on yourself, to make yourself look good? And for me, like, I would say, like, no, because, like, when I go to the gym, like, that's allowing me to show up better as a parent, because I'm able to have that time to work on myself, and I know personally, like, when I feel good, look good, all that stuff inside and out, like, I just show up as a better person all around in, like, all aspects, so I think I'm trying to figure out how to word it the best. Haven't had all my coffee yet, but
Good thing I brought you some.
Yes, the best. But no, I think it's really important, because I think if you don't take the time to, work on yourself, however that may be, or, have that self-care time, I think it makes you really resentful. You start resenting, all the things on your to-do list, the people around you. I think it just can make you a really bitter person sometimes, because you're able to see well, everyone else is able to do stuff that they want to do, and it's really easy to get in that headspace of must be nice, must be nice,
Must be nice.
wish
Yeah.
I had the time to do X, Y, Z.
If I had a penny.
Yes, yes, and and a lot of people, again, they don't see all the hard work and stuff that goes behind it. But I do think it's important, whether it's gym, eating right, whatever the case may be, to take time for yourself, even if it's 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes on a lunch break, supper, mid-afternoon, whatever the case may be. Do something that helps you refill your cup, because as cheesy it is, like, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Right.
And if your cup's empty, because like we said, being a mom is hard, whether you're a stay-at-home mom, single mom, working mom, coupled mom, doesn't matter. It's a lot. Sun up to sundown is a lot.
I mean, maybe I'm selfish for saying this, but even I don't think I've ever felt selfish for taking that time. Because from a really young age, I saw the benefit of taking care of myself, and it was my priority. Like, I would say, obviously family is number one, but like my health for majority of my life has been number one, because I know that if I don't show up for myself, whether that's how I'm eating or training, or just whatever self-care, however that looks to you, if I don't prioritize that, I can't prioritize my marriage. I can't prioritize my kids. I can't prioritize my work, my to-do list, all the checklist.
Yeah.
So to some degree, like, I never really felt that, that guilt, because I knew that, taking an hour after work or first thing in the morning, okay, it's an hour, but I know that that hour is so beneficial, because now I'm going to show up better in all other aspects of my life.
Right.
Versus I go home for that hour, or I don't go for that hour, and then I feel like crap, and that just snowballs into everywhere else.
Right. It's almost like having a good hair day. When your hair looks good, your whole day is
good.
Yeah, your whole day's better.
Like, have you ever had those days where, or even like a rut? Let's say you're in a rut, and the more you don't do, the more you don't feel like doing.
Yes, it's almost like it starts stacking up, and it's like, if I would have just done this little thing here, this little thing there, then it wouldn't be so big.
Right. Right.
And so feel so big to manage.
And that's one thing I liked about competing so much, especially during prep, is because it's almost like the more busy I was, the more things I had to get done, the more I had enough energy, and the more I had this like drive. Yeah, the structure. And then on, especially when I got done with competing, and there was just kind of this weird gap of time where I was like, well, now what? Because here I was like still doing online clients. I wasn't really back into working more clinic and hospital hours. It was just kind of this weird gap of time. I would just sit and be like, I don't know what to do. I'd have this list of things to do, but it's like I felt so overwhelmed by things that shouldn't be overwhelming. I just lost that motivation to really want to do anything.
Yeah. So with your competing, I'm glad you brought that up. So kind of segue into that. Did you get, or do you feel like you got a lot of like shade or like negative comments, or like what's some stuff that you went through when you were actively competing with, having kids and all that stuff? Like, and I think we talked about a little bit in our intros. You have mediums and bigs.
Mediums and bigs.
Mediums and bigs. And I have pretty littles yet.
Yeah, pretty littles.
So we're in different stages of parenting. Different levels of busy, different types of busy, but I think it's all equally as exhausting.
For sure.
But when you were competing, like, what are some of the things that you felt like you went through, either struggled or learned or kind of helped you work through being a mom that was competing and like juggling everything?
Well, I think first it started, like I kind of said this in another podcast, I was really mindful about what I chose to share and not share with the kids, even to begin, because I think whether it's to kids or your community, no matter who it is, your family, spouse, whatever, the very first time you say competing, I feel like there's a response that is often negative, because if you hear compete, you think of vanity, you think of comparing yourself to others, you think of competing in a really tiny bikini looking thing and strutting
Yes.
around on heels with your
Yeah.
hair and makeup all done up.
Especially when you're trying to talk to someone who's like, well, what do you mean, like, bodybuilding competing? Like, you, like, just, like, go lift things? You're like,
Yeah.
oh, no, like, you show them pictures, like you said, and then they see, like,
Right.
oh,
And they're like, oh.
that's, like, you have kids, though. Like, you have all
Exactly.
girls.
Right.
Like, we both have all girls.
Right.
So I think that's a whole nother, like, level on top of it.
Yes. So that was one concern. So I was pretty quiet about competing just in the first place, because I was still trying to navigate what did I want to get out of this sport? Who knows? Maybe I was going to start competing and stop after one show. So I didn't feel the need to bring the kids into this new lifestyle without being sure that it was something that I could navigate in a healthy, responsible way as a parent. And, but really, they've been coming to the gym with me since they were infants. Like, I can remember bringing both of them in, like, the literal car seats, and hoping they would nap. And if they didn't, like, I can remember doing bicep curls while I'm, like, rocking the car seat with my foot. And then I'm thinking, like, sweet, I'm getting extra balance. And, and as they got older, they came to the gym with me. And, now both of them, they're all, like, in good structured fitness, structured routines. Gosh, lost my train of thought. So I think that was one thing, just getting into it. But my kids never knew me without fitness in my life. So that wasn't such a big deal. It was more so of, like, how do I navigate? Okay, guys, now I'm doing this, like, fitness thing. I'm still doing all the things that you've never not seen me do. They always knew I paid attention to what I eat and made healthy choices. But now it was how to navigate explaining to them that, okay, now I'm going to compete with how I look next to somebody else.
Yeah. Or, why when we're going to eat or an event or something, like, why isn't it mom eating ice cream with us? Or why isn't mom having some birthday cake or something like that?
Or why she just do weird stuff? Like, why she bring her, like, frozen protein shake into the movie theater?
Yes.
Little things like that, like, I would find myself doing so that I could enjoy the act of whatever we were doing. So let's say we're going to a movie. They're having popcorn and I'm having my frozen protein shake that I'm eating like ice cream. Yeah. But that way I felt involved. So my kids started catching on to that, and they just knew.
Well, it's like you said, I mean, when it's something that they don't know anything different, they just think that's normal, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I know. Well, then here's the thing. Fine line. And, I don't know if it's something you struggled with, but one thing I was very nervous about is, I'm just going to be completely transparent. I struggled with body dysmorphia my entire life. Like, I can tell you the outfit I was wearing the day I became aware that a body was a big deal. Like, I can tell you where I was. I can tell you what comment prompted it. I can tell you how that, worked in my mind. And the most I'll say is it was third grade. And so from third grade on, it's like I had this veil over my head, as children should have. And all of a sudden, one day it was lifted, and now I became aware that my body looked different, or aware that my clothes weren't the name brand clothes like some of the other girls. My hair was different, or I was developing a little bit different than the other girls. And that carried over into middle school, into high school, into adulthood. Add some pregnancies in there. So I think for the most of my adult life, my little kid life, has been surrounded about that. And to be honest, I was so scared of how do I compete and not portray that onto my children.
Right, especially like you said, in a very subjective sport, and it's literally based on what you look like.
And how you compare. Like, we say this all the time, like, you could be bringing in your best, but it matters who else shows up. So, like,
Yeah.
You're asking a judge to sit there and pick apart your every flaw, even though, like, in your mind, this is the best you've ever looked. You know how hard you worked, your family knows how hard, and you're asking this judge to critique everything about you, even down to your hair color, your suit
Yeah.
color, which is so subjective, and then picking apart the things of your body that genetically you cannot control.
Right.
I think that was the hardest part, where I was like, there is nothing I can do about that. And then on top of that, being older now, I was competing against younger, youthful women where everything is still in the right spot, and their
Yeah.
skin is glamorous, and their hair, and all the things.
And then having to turn around and tell your girls, well, it doesn't matter what you look like or whatever. And then be like, okay, try to take us back and be like, well, I need to tell myself that too.
Right,
Like,
right,
you know,
because
like,
then you feel like a hypocrite, where you're like,
Yes.
oh, I'm strong, and I'm going to show my girls that,
Yeah.
nothing matters, the scale doesn't matter, which it doesn't. It's all about strength and all this, and then
Yeah.
inside you're crushed, because you know that there are still struggles that you have to your inner
Yes.
core, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm a hypocrite.
yeah, that, I feel like I kind of went through the same thing too. And yeah, probably around like the same age. Like I remember being in probably elementary school. Same thing. I was always very active, and like I don't. This sounds bad. I don't want to say bigger girl, because I'm not traditionally big, but I'm really tall. Like I'm
Let
just
me guess, you
tall.
got called solid.
Solid. Very athletic
Oh.
legs.
So I feel like solid was the term that people used when we were little, because
Yes.
they didn't want to call you chubby or something other. So you're
Yes.
solid.
Yes. And I remember, like I would always joke, and I remember a conversation I had with one of my teachers, and I was just like joking. I said, oh, I'll get skinny this summer first when I do swimming and stuff. And then all of a sudden, I didn't get skinny. My little belly stayed, and I was like, oh.
Oh.
And then seeing
Yeah.
all the other girls, especially in swim team, like I was at the age where everyone was wearing two pieces and stuff, and now all of a sudden I was like, well, maybe I want a one piece. I don't. My belly doesn't look like those girls anymore. And I see that with my girls now as well. My husband and I are both, again, not saying we're large, but we're not petite people. We're my
Your
husband's
frame is.
yeah, my husband's over 6 foot. I'm an inch shy of 6 foot. I'm 5'11", I'm very athletic. My husband's not obese, but he's a big dude, And so we do have larger girls. I mean, they're by no means obese. They're both very active. I mean, they do all the sports. I mean, we run around. And they eat decent, but it's hard to also not worry, like, are they going to go through the same thing,
What happens when they go to school?
Yes, and all of a sudden they realize that, oh, they are bigger than some of the other girls.
Right, right.
And then, like you said, then you turn around and now they're seeing us do a sport where we're trying to be as big and as small as possible, and we're comparing ourselves to other people, and how we eat and stuff like that. It's
hard.
it's a juggling act.
Well, and then on top of that, they already have, your kids not so much yet, but, my kids, they've grown up with social media. So, you have the noise at school, you have the noise that you see on TV or just like amongst your friends, but now you have the noise from social media of what you should or shouldn't look like.
And everything's AI and photoshopped and airbrushed.
Right, and you don't even know, like, what's real, what's not. The comparison game amongst your peers, amongst people that you don't even know, but yet now we set this standard of what we think is the perfect body, or
the best way to eat, or
Yeah.
labeling foods as good foods and bad foods. Like, that's one thing that we really, really try hard not to do in our house, is like label good stuff, bad stuff. We'll say, like, hey, that's maybe not the best choice to fill your body, or hey, that's probably going to make your tummy upset, at gymnastics. If you want to eat that, that's fine, but when your tummy hurts, that's why. And I've let my oldest do that a few times, where she wanted something that was not the best choice before she goes and runs and flips around. And she said afterwards, she goes, my tummy hurts. And I said, yeah, it's probably because of what you ate. She goes, I shouldn't have ate that. I said, probably not before gymnastics, And so I think that has been been something that we've really tried. Because I just like mind over matter. Like as soon as you label something bad, like
Right.
one, your body wants it, and then now now we have like a 4 or 5 year old that's like, well, I can't eat that because my mommy said that's bad.
Oh,
And it's like, and you're like,
yeah.
oh god, like
Right.
ugh.
I mean, that was something growing up too. Like, we never really put hard restrictions on the kids eating. I saw in other kids what that did, as far as like what you're saying.
Yes.
If you say
Yeah.
you can't have that, the kid wants it even more. And we had friends, some of our kids' friends, that were pretty restricted on what they could eat. And I feel like they would come over and just they'd want to eat like
It's like a free for all.
Free for all.
Yeah,
Right.
because like this is my chance. I better get it now.
And not same idea, but I remember we didn't have a whole lot of those foods growing up, and part of it was just like, financial, not
Right.
necessarily because we were told we couldn't, but I kind of saw that in myself kind of a different way where we didn't have all the snacks and all the fun food. And so when I went to a friend's house, I mean, I wanted to
game over.
Yeah, I wanted
Yes.
to raid the cupboards.
Yes.
So I saw that in my kids as friends, but more so because it was restricted.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we didn't really restrict. We definitely did more like we didn't really keep a lot of junk in the house either.
That helps too.
And
they
that
just
still
don't-
helps.
They just don't
now.
see it. It's just not.
It's not
not an
available.
option. Yeah.
Right. And so they would get some of those fun foods when, we go out to eat or we go on
Right.
vacation or
Yep.
we go for ice cream. But like
Yep.
we did not stock our house
No.
with a lot of the AKA crappy snacks.
Right.
It was a lot of yogurts and veggies and come on, I'm not like perfect super mom where it's
Right.
like
they
it's
still get
only
candy
great
and
things.
sugar. Yeah.
Right. Like we had well okay, so funny story. I think I've told you this before, but we used to have Halo night, which is like
Yes.
so which is like the little ice creams and they're pint size. And anyway, the kids kind of grew out of Halo, they just kind of did.
Yeah.
And they discovered Ben and Jerry's. And the littlest one,
Game over.
she was pretty little at the time and said something along the lines, instead of Halo night, she's like, oh, we can just call it BJ night.
Oh no.
And the older girls were like, I don't think we'll call it that. Like, so from there on out, it became pint night. So that way it encompassed,
better.
right. You could have Halo, you could have Ben and Jerry's, but I
Good
guess,
Halo or BJ's, or maybe both.
or both. But I guess my point of that was we kind of had these nights where it was
Yes.
special.
Yep.
And so during those special occasions, the girls, they correlated with we have different foods for separate occasions.
Right.
It wasn't, we didn't have pint night every night.
Right.
So I think, instead of, like you're saying, labeling, just giving kids boundaries, but showing them like what's healthy, what's not.
Yeah.
It's okay to have this, but moderation.
Yeah, that's definitely a big thing too. Like, and that's the moderation is something I find I definitely struggled with. Cause same thing,
Same.
growing up, like, again, like we didn't have a lot, so when we got food, it was like, you better eat it all, type of thing. Like I spent a lot of money on that. We're not gonna waste it.
Yeah. Clean
type
your
of thing.
plate.
Yeah, clean your plate.
That's a happy plate.
Yes, and
Like we encouraged overeating, really.
Yes.
Like we didn't
And then you
encourage our
felt
kids
bad.
to like
Yes.
listen. I think we did, but like us growing up,
yes,
we were
growing
not
up.
encouraged to listen to our hunger
Or you guys
cues.
sit there until your plate's empty.
Right.
type of
It didn't
thing.
matter if you were truly hungry or not.
Yes.
Now I can get on board with that if like, okay, you don't eat your meal and the little manipulative brain of a child, an hour later is like, oh, magically I'm hungry because
Yeah.
now there's dessert. That's one
Yeah.
thing, but as kids growing up, we may not have been hungry, but we couldn't get up. Or did your parents ever put your plate back in the fridge?
Mine never did that.
Okay, so
no.
mine did. If I didn't eat, like they didn't argue with me.
Yeah.
It was just like, that's fine. If you don't want to eat, I'll put your plate back in the fridge. And when you're hungry, so it kind
It'll
of
be
was
waiting there
encouraging
for you.
hunger cues.
Yeah.
Because it was like, then when you're really hungry,
Yeah.
it'll be waiting for you.
Yeah, because I something I've learned, like, man, sometimes my girls, I feel like I'm like, you hit a black hole of endlessness. I'm like, there's no way you're still hungry. And then other times, like, they'll eat like little birds. But
Right.
again, like, you
That's
think about
growing.
it,
I mean, that's growing
that's
patterns.
a natural
Yeah.
eating, growing pattern.
Heck, I do that. I mean, you
Yes.
think of your cycle and you
Yeah.
think of if you're when you're competing, like if you're putting on weight or losing weight. But yeah, your cycles, you feel like that.
Yeah.
But here, we were taught to, it doesn't matter the cycles or whatever.
Yeah.
Eat it all.
Don't waste that
Eat
money.
it all.
So that's something we've really been trying to work on. And it's a habit I still find myself like wanting to incorporate. Like, no, like you need to eat all of your food. But then I'm like, okay, first of all, like they're little bitty bellies. They've had a lot. I probably just over portioned their plate. And it's like we'll tell them, okay, one more bite, and then magically they'll be able to eat like a couple more pieces of veggies. And I was like, okay, like
One thing I did do when the kids were little is they had to eat as many bites as they were old. And so, like when they were 4, it was okay. You have to eat 4 bites. After 4 bites, and that kind of there was no science behind that or any data. But in my mind, I kind of thought, their bellies are, pretty small, and the older they got, it got a little bit bigger, and that was just a good way. It worked well with us as they were growing up because then they knew what to expect. Just like when they were 5, they knew like, okay, I'm gonna have to eat at least 5 bites, or I can't get up. And that way the expectations were just there.
And I think it helps empower them to realize, like you said, like the hunger cues. Okay, this is what full feels like, and it's okay for me to say I'm full. And we've told them to, like, hey, if they play like the whole like I'm full and don't want their stuff, and they come back an hour later because they want like candy or whatever, and I'm like, there's apples and veggies in the fridge. Well, I don't want that. Well, then you're not that hungry,
right?
Like because you would, and they love fruit. I mean, veggies. Like my oldest was sitting there just raw dogging a pepper the other day, and I'm like, that's not great, but that's not an apple. You get them, tiger. Like, just straight up going it down.
One of my daughters, she works at daycare now, but she worked at daycare in high school, and she taught me something that I was like, gosh, I wish I would have like thought of that when you guys were little. But the kids at daycare, if they truly don't like something, because some kids don't, but they had to at least take a no thank you bite. And I was like, I love that idea because kids aren't going to like everything you put in front of them.
We don't like everything. Like you're expecting them to be to just magically like everything, and I'm like, you don't even like that. Like what?
But I do think it's important to have your kids try something, and so by saying, you know what, that's fine, just take a no thank you bite, you're teaching them to try something new, but that it is okay if you don't like it, and you're respecting their their wishes. And what would drive me nuts is kids just sitting at the table, not even necessarily ours, just like kids in general, because I had siblings, I've had lots of cousins, like I've been around a lot of little kids, being the oldest, kids that would just sit there and be like, you put something in front of them, like, I don't like it. Like,
I'm not making separate things, man. You're gonna
like, that's not like I'm not a short order cook.
No.
And, but I think also when it comes to kids too, is you have to pick your battles. And, so if you have kids that are used to eating a certain way, let's say they're visiting, or, let's say you have like, you're babysitting someone else's kids, or, just whatever the situation may be. I think you have to just sometimes pick your battles. And sometimes, having these huge fights over the dinner table, it's just not worth it. And
sometimes they're going to eat PB&J, and that's okay.
Right. And it's like, you don't want them also to associate mealtime with just this stress and drama. And so you do that too as a parent, where you're just like, you know what? I could do things this way tonight, but I just really don't have the energy to fight with them about mealtime. So we're gonna give them a freebie on this one, and we're gonna move on with our life.
Yeah. And kind of on the same train as meals, in my squirrel brain just squirreled pretty hard with it. Going back to competing, one of the things I kind of dealt with, or people would ask all the time, like, aren't you scared you're going to give your kids like an eating disorder? Like they're watching you only eat this stuff, and you're telling them, no, I'm not going to eat that, it's bad for me, or no, I can't eat that, or whatever. They're like, aren't you scared? Like your kids are going to see that, and all of a sudden they're just magically going to have an eating disorder.
Right.
And to be honest, like I had never thought of that until people put that thought in my head. which kind of sucked.
But here's the thing, like, would you ask an overweight, obese woman or parent, we'll just say parent, who has obese children, would you say, like, aren't you scared that you're going to give your children diabetes and cardiovascular disease and high cholesterol and decrease their life expectancy by how many years? Does that ever worry you?
Yeah, but
No, we would never ask
exactly.
that. Like,
well, you're gonna throw shade on me because my kids are watching me eat chicken, rice, and broccoli.
right.
What?
And not drinking
What?
juice or pop and
Yes, or because I don't want to eat a piece of cake. All of a sudden, I'm gonna magically make my kids think cake's the most awful thing for you ever.
or you don't
No.
drink. Oh my
Whoa.
gosh, your kids don't see you drink. Yeah, it's
You,
so.
wait, you mean my
it's,
kids don't watch me do the most awful legal drug ever and then become an absolute disaster in front of them? So
I know.
crazy.
That's why it's just like when you turn some of the things like that, it's just
Especially the
mind
obese
blowing.
stuff,
The obese
yes.
stuff, right? Because what's happening now is we see parents who are obese, their children are obese. Look at what they're eating. Look at the lack of activity.
And look
But-
at all the different diseases and quote mental disorders we have, and it's like, well, maybe again, and this is gonna sound really bad. It's not meant to be, but it's like maybe if you gave your kids some real fruit and vegetables, not fruit snacks loaded with stuff. Don't get me wrong, my kids get fruit snacks,
Right.
but
But it's balanced because they have
Yes.
majority of their diet is
but
whole
maybe
foods.
take the Cheetos away and start working on some of that. Take the Netflix away, and why don't you guys go for a walk or go to the
Right.
park? That was, and again, like that was kind of one of my things. When I had a lot of cardio, especially during prep and stuff, when I had steady state, we'd find a park, the furthest away park, and that's the park that we're going
Oh
to
yeah,
walk
they
to.
don't know the difference. All
No,
they
and
know
they
is
just-
mom's bringing us on a walk to the park.
Yes, and they have a freaking blast because like one is a park we don't get to go to all the time, and they're just along for the ride.
Right.
Well, my oldest now will ride her bike and stuff, but I mean, you can incorporate stuff like that. It's not like you have to sit there on a treadmill or an indoor bike or
Right.
something. Like you can absolutely make these things work with your kids.
Right.
Or go to a park and kick around a soccer ball or play basketball.
Right.
You know,
Or
Um,
even like little things like parking far away from the door. And then when your kids
take
ask
a flight
you,
of stairs.
like, why are we parked so far away? And you say, because we're getting our steps in, or
Yep.
because we're getting
Yeah.
activity. And I used to
Yes.
call it parking out in the boondocks. And I can remember the youngest saying to her friend one time, my mom always parks out in the boonies.
Yeah.
Like, because that was just part of
Yeah.
our routine. I don't even think about it anymore.
Yeah.
It's so ingrained into the way I am.
And then it creates that same
It's a lifestyle,
habits for
right.
them. Like
Right.
that's not weird for them. That's not out of the
Right.
norm for them. It's just something they enjoy doing. Like
And your comment, like, about, why don't you do this with your kids? Like, instead of give them real fruit. The issue is unless the parents can't do that to themselves, they can never model that to their children.
Yes.
And they're also the very first ones that will come at you with, you're doing this and you're doing this. And, like that girl that I talked about, that letter, I
Yes.
guarantee the person sending that letter is likely overweight, likely doesn't feel good about the way she looks, and maybe feels guilty because here a single mom is doing things and making time for her
Just
health and
absolutely
wellness
killing it.
that this lady maybe isn't prioritizing, and it's really just out of guilt.
Yeah.
And-
I feel like that's a lot of like when we'll get negative comments or people will kind of like say stuff that they're like it's a
It is a vain sport. I
yeah,
mean,
well, when people are trying to like say something mean, but they'll kind of wrap it in a compliment, or they're saying like a joking way, or whatever, and it's like I just
like the passive aggressive, like, oh,
yes,
I'd offer you one, but oh yeah, I know you can't.
yeah, yeah. Which and like especially with like the food stuff, and the competing, like my girls have learned, and I mean they're still pretty little, and this may change and evolve as they get bigger. I don't know, but again, like they eat what they see us eat, and during honestly when I am competing and I am in prep, and that's the time where it has to be super strict, like there's a time and a place, and they understand that during that time mom's gonna eat different stuff, and that's fine.
And it's fine.
But I'm still sitting down and eating with them. I'm still eating my prepped meal
Right.
with them. I'm not hiding in a corner
What
or a
they
different
don't
room, and
Right. What they don't see you doing is starving yourself by no means.
If anything,
Like,
they
that'd
see
be-
me eat more
right.
because they're seeing me eat all the time.
And even if if your parents, even if your children watched you starve yourself, is that any better than your kids watching you completely stuff your face full? Like, I think we're in this like time right now where one or the other is just as bad. And
Yes.
it would drive me crazy. Everybody, if you are confident with your body and you are healthy, it does not matter what you look like. But I think we have to come back to the reality of being overweight. It's not about that it doesn't look attractive. I don't care how it looks. If you are overweight, if your BMI is greater than 25, you are classified as overweight. And
Right.
it doesn't matter how you look.
Right.
But
And
when
with
we're
the-
putting that on magazines and social media and
Yes.
saying like big is beautiful, no one said it wasn't beautiful. We're saying it's not healthy. So
Yes.
now you're encouraging women to be overweight, and you've made it into this like issue of body image. It's not about body image at
So
that
your
point.
internal health, and we're saying it can absolutely swing the other way too. If you're super super malnourished and super super
Yeah,
skinny,
that's not good either.
That's not healthy either. You know,
Right.
it's
But I'm not going to sit there and shame one or the other. I'm not going to sit there and call someone like, oh my gosh, she looks so skinny, it's disgusting. Nor would I ever approach someone who is overweight and say, oh my gosh, you're fat, it's
Yeah.
gross. But yet it's a double standard. But really, no matter which way it is, it's unhealthy.
yeah. And I get really frustrated when I see very very large, frankly like obese kids straight up struggling. I'm like, your 5 or 6 year old is absolutely gassed and cannot play and engage with other kids because they can't go up 3 steps onto the playground, and I'm like,
Right.
it makes me sad because that kid doesn't know any different. Chances are the parents don't know any different. It's just part of that cycle. But it's like, we're okay with that, and no one's saying anything to that person or that parent or throwing shade at that parent to their face.
Right.
But
Well,
again, you're mad because I'm taking my kid to the gym and I'm showing them a different lifestyle and a healthy lifestyle and a different way to eat and different options to eat. Do we have ice cream? Absolutely. Like, do we have cake on birthdays and different events? Absolutely. But it's not something that we're having all the time. And they understand that this is a special sweet treat. And they also understand sometimes mom doesn't want to eat that, and that's fine. And I'll tell them, like, one of the big things I'll tell them is, oh, that doesn't fuel my body the way I want it to right now. Or, that doesn't fuel my goals right now. You don't have to say, oh, it's a bad food, or that's going to make me fat. That's the biggest one is I definitely don't ever try and say, oh, that's going to make me fat. Or in front of my girls, I don't want to say, oh, I feel fat or I look fat.
Yeah.
Like, that's a big thing. Like,
that is something I also I was good about not doing. Like, I can honestly say, like, when the kids were growing up, I never looked in the mirror and was like, oh my gosh, I look so fat today. Or, oh my
Yes.
gosh, the closest I can remember, and this is as they were older, so it was kind of more of like they just get it, where I may go to button something, I'm like, ooh, this doesn't quite fit the same. But I
Yeah.
wasn't like body shaming myself or putting myself down against about my body. Now, though, they'd probably say different about my hair because I'm constantly complaining about my hair because I've had a lot of issues with hair loss recently. So they'll be like, yeah, she doesn't complain about her weight, but if you could get her to shut up about her hair, life would be fine. So that I was very thankful that I never did that. I never sat there and picked myself apart in front
Yeah.
of the girls
And,
or
like, my girls will see me weigh myself. Like, I only weigh myself once a week on my check-in day. More as I'm going through, like, in prep and stuff like that. But we've reframed it, like, when they step, because they like to step on the scale and they'll be like, how big are my muscles? And so they'll tell me, like, oh, my oldest knows numbers now, and she'll say her weight, and I'm like, wow, you're getting some really big muscles. And she'll be like, oh, I'm so strong. Like, so she gets excited. Like, we're really trying to work on, because again, they see me step on the scale. We have a scale in our bathroom, and just trying to really reframe that into a positive thing,
like
a
there's
positive
nothing scary about that
number.
machine.
Yeah, we're not like, oh man, you gained 2 pounds this week. We're like, oh wow, like you and like you're getting big muscles, type of thing. And so I think that's helped, especially because like my oldest does wrestling. That's a weight sport,
Right. Right.
And again, like she's just tall. She's just just a little mini brick shit
Oh,
house.
girl, I get that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Both your girls are like way taller than me.
Yeah. And I think too, when they both started, when they started strength training, it was
Your youngest is straight yoked.
she works really hard.
Yes.
She works really hard. And I can remember when she started going with me to the gym, she just would mimic what I would do.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like creating anything special because of her age. That sometimes I get, not me necessarily personally, but I've heard kickback from people like they're too young to be lifting weights. Absolutely not. Like if you are doing resistance training, it's great for your bones, it's great for your muscles,
it's great for your mind.
I think as long as kids have proper form, proper guidance, safety, and they're resting appropriately, like strength training is appropriate for any kid.
Well, honestly, like you think about it, when they do like squats and stuff,
They're doing body weight stuff.
they have body weight, but a lot of times like they have perfect form because they haven't created any bad habits. They don't.
Right.
Everything
Right.
bends and moves the way it's supposed to. Like they'll squat down, and I'm like, if I could squat like that, like I would.
Well, we can't hardly say that strength training for kids is not good for them or not good for their joints when they're literally strength training their body weight in just normal play. What do you think they're doing when they're going across the monkey bars?
Yeah,
What
but
do
it's
you
okay to throw, or it's okay to throw them in a sport, but yet you're not going to teach them how to supplement that sport. Or that activity.
Yes.
Yeah,
they all go together. And when my youngest started strength training, that was really just what we did. I just made sure that she had good posture and good form, and then she developed the love for herself.
It wasn't everything you felt like. You don't have to force her to go.
I never
like,
forced her.
It
ever.
was, if you ask, okay, absolutely, you can come with me.
Right.
Or if
And when she was little, it was just playtime. Like we would bring a bag of toys. And it was playtime, but she could still see what I was doing.
Yes.
And pretty soon, watching turned into curiosity of, well, can I do that? Sure, grab some dumbbells.
Yeah.
Let's do some bicep curls.
Oh, yeah.
That turned into the exercise ball. Every single move we could think of to do on that exercise ball, just because of the novelty of this giant bouncy ball calling their name.
But it's fun. And,
it is
and
fun.
I think if you make the gym fun or the fitness fun, like I said, even if this is something you're doing in your living room because you don't have the ability to go to the gym. Like here, we're very lucky, especially Nelson's gym that we go to. Like it's very kid friendly. Like I've always been able to bring the girls with me, and like literally they love it. And I understand that there are some people that don't have that ability. If you're in a bigger metro area or something like that, like yeah, you probably can't have your two little kids running around with you type of thing. But even if you're doing stuff at home, like they can still watch you.
Yeah.
Whether you have exercise bands or you're doing all body weight stuff, like make it fun. Do some push-ups. Put your kid on your back.
I was gonna say,
like,
use your kid as the weight.
Yes, they love it. It's fun for them.
Or make it a game. We did that. I can remember when my youngest was little, we would she would see me recording workout videos. That was like when I was doing more informative type videos. And so, we would take turns and I would record her like doing some, and those were so funny, but I think just giving them that empowerment to be active in how it suits them, and incorporating that into their play and their developmental stage and their sports, and
especially, and like we said too, especially as they get older, don't ever feel like don't force them, because I think that's just like with anything, sport, activity, doesn't matter. Like when you force something on a kid, you're going to create resentment, and you're going to create eventual dislike towards that. I mean, that's just, I think, just people in general.
Even sports. Like you try to make a kid do a sport just because you had a love for the sport.
Yes.
The kid they may start doing it, but at some point they're gonna be like, they're gonna lack the passion.
Yes, but again, like if you make the gym fun and you don't force them to do it, and it's like, like when you got older, it's like, hey, I'd like to come with you. Absolutely. And if they don't want to do a full workout with you, or they want to do one exercise with you, that's fine. But you're helping create that habit and that lifestyle. And, especially having girls, like they're seeing that it's okay for a female to be in the gym, lifting weights, lifting heavy weights, being in the free weight section, they're not just going to the gym to do cardio and leave. We incorporate cardio. That's just part of our day.
Right.
But we're here to build muscles and get muscles.
Yeah.
They love to grab little dumbbells, and like you said, they'll do stuff, or like to do like little flexes in the mirrors and posing. The one thing I have noticed that I have to start being careful is when I do my check-in pictures. I try and do it before they get up. Every once in a while they'll sneak out, and I'm in there like my little like posing bikini. And again, like when you're posing, there's some like, especially like the back shot, and like you have to stick your butt out and really arch your back and stuff like that. And my oldest the one day was like, my mom takes pictures like this, and she like bends over with her butt, and I'm like, oh my god, like people aren't gonna understand. Like she's going, my mom takes pictures like this and sticks her butt out. And I'm like, oh Lord, no.
No, there's more to it.
Yeah.
Well, and with competing too, I think just navigating some of that, like I remember in regard to like Botox or, you know, doing some of those other enhancements that we do, you know, I struggled a little bit with, you know, knowing like, is that okay? Is it not? Like, do I teach my daughters to just embrace, you know, embrace the aging, which I do. And I used to always say, you know, I'm blessed to have wrinkles because that means I've lived this long. But I don't think there's anything wrong with choosing to do things that make you feel good. And if that's getting Botox or if that's going to get your nails done or your hair done because it makes you feel good, then who cares what everyone else thinks, because you're going to show up differently in your life because you feel a certain way. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the message more so to send to our daughters, instead of, oh, don't do that, that's bad. Oh, don't do that. If someone does that, they're being vain. If someone gets their hair done, shame on them. Oh, Botox, that, you know, like some of these stigmas that these, you know, that we see with some of these, gosh, I can't think of the word, not, you know, just activities, not even self-care. Some of the self-care things that we do that get a stigma because it's, if you do that, you're just being vain.
Right.
Where I will preach all day that I'll do something because it makes me feel good. Yes. And that's what I'm going to tell my daughters. Like, do not be ashamed because you want to wear makeup, or do not be ashamed because you want to show up a certain way, look a certain way. I think there's boundaries, but the only person that can set those boundaries is the person. It's not me as their mother.
Yes.
It's not their friends or social media. It's them. And what they're happy with is what they're happy with. And if somebody wears more makeup than maybe what I would and they look bomb, I can look at them and be like, oh my gosh, wow, their makeup looks amazing.
Yes.
It's more than I would ever wear. It doesn't mean it's bad. Just like, you know, somebody who wants to do a lot of lip filler, you know, I might be like, oh, that's a lot of filler.
Yeah.
But if it makes her feel good, that's okay. It doesn't mean I need to have my lips like that.
Yes.
But
and again, if someone is doing something that doesn't hurt you, and like kind of bringing it full circle back to that note, you know, that mom is not, she's not doing anything. If anything, she's teaching her daughter how to persevere, how to, you know, work through things and just continue to show up for herself and be a good role model and how to live a healthy lifestyle. And it's like she's not hurting anyone.
Right.
Anyone else. She, if anything, she's benefiting her and her daughter's life. And it's like, I think at the end of the day, you know, if what someone else is doing, just because you don't agree with it, or that's not the way you would parent your child, or you don't agree with the way that they're doing that, if it's not hurting them, it's just something you don't agree with, you don't need to be mean. Just carry on with your life and be like, well, that's not what I would do, and move on. You know, same as social media. If you don't like something, just keep scrolling, you know? Right. Don't sit there and throw shade, like, and make the comments, well, you're teaching your daughter, you're sitting up there prancing around in a bikini. Aren't you afraid that she's going to be embarrassed by your pictures or see your posts or whatever? And it's like, well, no, because I'm proud of it, and I'm showing them that it's okay to be proud of what you accomplished.
I'm glad you brought that up, because here, like, that does make me think of kind of a boundary I set for myself. So like when you're prancing around in a bikini, in your words, you're doing that for the sport. And so one thing that I set boundaries for myself is that, especially when the kids were in school, that when I would post any pictures that showed, you know, we'll just say suit pictures, that it was only pictures of my uniform. If it was any type of like, just really any pictures, because I did want to be mindful that I did have children that were in school. We do live in a small community. They, you know, their friends, their peers at school, they all have social media.
Right.
And so it's like, who wants to have their mom on social media flaunting herself? You know, it's one thing to show your bodybuilding pictures. It's one thing to be like in your uniform or even like in a sports related photo. And these are all my own opinions.
Right.
You know, because I have posted pictures before in athletic wear at a gym for like a photo shoot. But you never saw me post pictures of myself provocatively or in a string bikini posing a certain way,
Right.
or any type of sexual pictures. And I'm not saying it's bad if you do. I'm not placing judgment on those of you that
That's
have
just
or will.
what you did.
That was a boundary because I wanted
Yeah.
to respect my children.
Yeah.
And I didn't want them going to school and having there be whispers of, you know, did you see so-and-so's mom post her like rated R photo
Right.
on social media.
Right.
And I was also respectful to my workplace and my community of, you know, would that be different if I lived in this big city where I just, no one
Blended
knew
in a
me
little
from
bit
anyone
more.
else?
Yeah.
I don't think so, because I think as long as my kids are in school or they are in the area, I wanted to respect that. So even to this day, and not that I have a desire to anyway, but you never saw me do those type of photo shoots
Right.
and then post it, you know, like the
Right.
your typical thirst trap type
Yeah.
pictures,
Yeah.
you know. And it's great because a lot of the people that I see, a lot of the girls I see post those pictures in the fitness space, yeah, they look really good. So I can't discredit the hard work they've put in, and
Right.
you know, they're posing the way they are and minimal as they are. It's totally a type of photo that they're going for. It's a type of audience that they're trying to connect
Right.
to. Just because that's not my audience that I'm trying to connect to, I have
Yeah.
two options. I can either keep scrolling and be like, great, she looks great, she put in a lot of hard work, keep on going, or I can also just hit unfollow. Like if I don't want to
Yeah.
continue to see those, I can
Yes.
simply unfollow.
Yeah. And I think that kind of brings up a good point too. You know, after having kids, like a little bit like the body dysmorphia and stuff, it's really, really hard to see. One, it's hard to see, like for me, so I gained a lot of weight with both my pregnancies. My firstborn, I gained 70 pounds. And my second, I was with my coach at that time, so I only gained about 50. But either way, like, that's a lot. And I came back and competed in about 18 months after my first and about 18 months after my second. So I had really, really quick turnarounds. But even with that, right afterwards, like, it was really hard
Oh, I can't imagine.
to, like, look at.
I can't imagine.
But it was hard to, like, look at my body
Yeah.
and then see other people out there who have kids and they have, like, a six-pack. And I'm like,
Oh,
why don't
yes.
I look like that, you know? And
Right.
I've had friends that are had babies and they're very, very tiny. Like, you don't even know they're pregnant. They have a baby, and within a month or so, I'm like, you just had a kid? And here I am feeling like I look like a beached whale and stuff like that. So, like, that was
yeah.
really hard for me. And I did find that during that time, I did take a little bit step back from social media, because it was hard to see, like, other people. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong, or why don't I look like that? You know, and it's like,
Right. And do you find that you almost get resentful? And then you're
yes.
like, what the heck? Like, who am I becoming? Because just because I'm feeling this way about myself, why am I getting so resentful about this other girl? She can do what she wants. Let her
Yeah.
be how she is
And,
going to be.
a lot of that comes down to straight up genetics.
Yeah.
And like with both of mine, like I tried to keep weight training. That's another thing too. Like, if you're pregnant or whatever, obviously do what your doctor recommends. But don't stop strength training just because you get pregnant. If anything,
Yeah,
it's going to make your
if
pregnancy
you've been-
and birth easier.
Right. And typically they say, you know, like what you've been doing up until the time you've been pregnant, you typically can keep doing the same type of training.
Yes. Just pay
With
attention to
some
your body.
right, and with some modifications. Like,
Yeah.
you know, if someone's a CrossFit athlete, you know, to a degree, they probably can keep doing their CrossFit. But sometimes, you know, your body at some point is actually going to physically get in the way, and you might
Yes.
not be able to cling the way you
Yes.
did before because you have this giant belly.
Yeah.
But typically, yeah, you should keep staying active.
Mm-hmm.
I think most medical providers, like if someone has been completely sedentary and
Don't
now they're
bust out a
pregnant,
whole new routine.
right? Like,
But
but you can go walk
yes.
and
Yes.
you can swim. You know,
There's definitely
Right.
things, like I said, and everyone thinks, well, I don't have time to go to the gym 2 hours a day, every single day of the week. And it's like, but do you have time once or twice a week?
Right.
Even if you're not going to the gym, again, you can be doing stuff at home. Like if you're watching Netflix or
Get a walking
whatever.
pad. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you can get a walking pad or like in between stuff, or like during like because now streaming there's still commercials, which is dumb. Like we've gone full circle with TV. We did streaming to get away from commercials. Now our streaming has commercials.
Yes.
Anyway, stupid. But it's like during that commercial break, like okay, get up and do 10 squats.
Yep.
Like you can.
I
be
did used to do
doing
that.
stuff. Yeah, like you can be doing stuff. Like
Kids will testify to that. Like, oh, it's commercial. Mom's back to doing her little banded
Yeah.
workout and her little sit-ups.
and yeah, so I mean, like there's definitely ways to work around. Like this doesn't have to be. You don't have to be a bodybuilder.
No.
Again,
No.
6-7 days a week, 2+ hours in gym, and then cardio and all that other stuff. Like you can incorporate your kids into that lifestyle, and think about it. One, you're refilling your own cup, so you can pour into theirs, and you're helping set them up and their life for so much better success.
Right. And that becomes generational. I mean, it
Yes.
sounds corny, but like if you set the intention with your own children and they develop a healthier lifestyle, they eat more nourishing foods, they're healthy BMI, strength train, all the things, and that becomes part of their lifestyle, and they teach that on to their children and so on. Like you have the ability to create this healthier legacy.
Yes.
And it really starts with all of us. But I think like we have to feel empowered to do that. But that starts with awareness. And so maybe it's something that no one's really ever thought about before, where maybe someone realizes they're overweight, not healthy, and maybe some things they could change, but they haven't really sat down and thought about how does my behavior and my health impact my children, and how does that look for their future, and how does that look for the future of their children, and so on. And then not to mention, I mean, it's a snowball effect of financial cost. The cost of, whether it's
Being unhealthy.
medications, or maybe you have to buy different clothes, or you have to buy 2 plane seat ticket. That's a stretch, but I guess
But
my
anymore,
point
it's
is like
not.
it costs more to be
Yes.
unhealthy. No
Yes.
matter how you put it will cost you more in the long run to be unhealthy.
Yes. And again, like we're not trying to throw shade at people, and especially like if you've just had a baby, give yourself some grace and some time. Like you're not gonna bounce back. Like
Right.
just because your favorite influencer had a baby and a month later they have a 6-pack.
Right.
Cool. That's not majority of people. Like it took you 9 months to make a human, and now your whole life and your routines and everything's changed.
At least give yourself
least
9 months to
At the minimum,
right, to get back to
know?
baseline.
And you have to remember too, like this little person too, like this is all new for them, just as much as it's new for you. So, if anything, you can take it as an opportunity to start new.
Right.
To start
And
something
make it a
fresh.
family.
Yeah,
Even with your spouse, significant other, partner, whatever, make it a family event and a family
Yeah.
goal.
like my girls love going for cardio, which I feel like I've ruined them because they don't call it walks. They're like, we're going for cardio. And I'm
Going
like,
for cardio.
or we're gonna walk to the park for cardio. Oh no. That or my youngest
We used to say steps,
yeah same thing,
we're going to
but-
get our steps in.
Yeah. She, oh my gosh, she gets so excited. Like every single morning, we go gym. Yes, we'll go to the gym. We go gym. I'm like, okay, we're going.
We're going.
I have to eat first. Chill, girl.
Yes.
But it's nice and it's fun to see them enjoy that part. And like we've got stuff at home, like I said, and we're lucky enough we can go to the gym. But it's fun and it's nice to see them also fall in love
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
And even outside of like the physical aspect of it, like it's also teaching them like to stay disciplined. When you say you're gonna do something, show up and do it. You
Right.
know.
Right. And
Especially-
empowered.
Yes, and especially with the competing, I've set a goal, and for right now, that's my goal. That's my priority, and for them to see that and to see, like, you're doing stuff even though you're not motivated. You're doing stuff when you're tired. You're doing stuff when you don't want to, because if all else, you told yourself that you were gonna do it, and so you need to.
Yeah.
At the end
Show
of the
up for
day,
yourself.
yes. And so it's been nice to kind of teach them that, and
Well, and I think the empowerment when you're giving them decisions, like when you're giving them the options of, let's just say you're giving them the example between an apple and carrots. You know, give them decisions, and then they feel that empowerment of it was their choice. It's not something you made them
Yes.
do.
Yes.
You're giving them choice, but you are putting boundaries on what their choices are. And I think that's part of being a good parent, is making sure the choices that you're placing in front of them
Yes.
are responsible in the first place. And then, even no matter what they choose, it's going to be a good choice.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of like when you would, in the morning, instead of fighting with them about what they wear, just pick out two outfits and be like, which one do you want to wear today? They're both weather appropriate. They're
Yeah.
they're both
Yeah.
school appropriate. All the things. So now it doesn't matter which one they choose, because
Yeah.
you've already placed good choices in front of them.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're really trying to hit home here.
And like I said too, sometimes also having them learn for themselves. Like I said, like there's been times where my youngest has wanted like, she's just sneakily pounded a bunch of candy before we've gone to like practice or something. I told her, same thing. I'm like, your tummy's gonna hurt, and it's like her. That's also helped though too, like her correlating. Okay, I did not make the best choice, and now I don't feel good, and it's, I
Right.
don't feel good because I just ate an entire Hershey's bar, and I'm
Yes.
like all of 40 pounds.
I still do that with my youngest, who's in high school. Like,
Yes.
I whether it's activity or hormones or whatever, there are times where she is eating and she'll even say out loud, like, oh my gosh, I don't want to eat. I want to eat that, but like, I know I won't feel good. And I'll say too, like, don't do it. You're going to feel like crap. And then she won't, so I think that's something too, even as they get older, and even as adults, we have to remind ourselves. I do that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to town on something and it's really tasty, and I'm like, I should just stop. I'm full, but it's so good.
Yeah.
So I think as adults, we have to keep ourselves in check,
Yeah.
and just remind ourselves of hunger cues.
And
Slow down.
It's okay to have leftovers. You can put it in the fridge. You can eat it
Back
later.
to putting it in the fridge.
Oh no, Jama.
I'm throwing it.
Yeah. But like you don't, especially when you go out to eat, like you don't have to eat your entire plate. You can put it in a box. You can take it home. It's not the end of the world.
Or split it. Split it with your partner.
Yes.
And some places too, like if you say as soon as they bring it out, hey, can you box up half of it for me? Even before they, when you order it, some places will do that. And that can be really helpful for people. Just trying to take that temptation away of overeating. That way they don't see it and they just know that they have 2 meals.
Yeah.
So.
Well, especially like the competitors too, with the people, when your kids and your family are seeing you bring different food to stuff, and just, again, don't label what they're eating as bad, and people are wrong. People are always going to say stuff. They're always going to have some kind of like passive aggressive or snide joking comment about you bringing your stuff or whatever, but don't feel like you can't be involved in your kids' activities and events and stuff like that because you can't eat the cake.
Right.
You can still go and you can still have a good time. Like our culture is so food focused.
It's so warped.
And it really, really took me, honestly, like going through a prep to realize I can still go out to events and go do things and spend time with people without drinking or gorging myself on food or whatever the case may be. I can still meet my goals without having to do all of that stuff, and it's completely fine, And like I said, like my kids understand that, and they know like there's a time and a place. They see me eat pizza and ice cream and all the other stuff, but they also see me, one, eat it within reason. I don't gorge myself. They understand it's for special occasions, and they also see me the majority of the time eat healthy food and a lot of food,
Right.
So
yes. That's one thing I've always said too about with bodybuilding, and that is one of the biggest misconceptions, no matter who it's from, is that bodybuilders don't eat. That is so, it's called bodybuilding for a reason.
the amount of food that I put away in my off season is sickening.
Yeah, you can't build a body if you don't
Yes.
feed the body.
Yes.
And you don't train the body.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
But-
no, I think this was great. And, hopefully this generation of kids, it's scary to see. You can probably attest to this too, but, just being in the classroom or like seeing my kids as peers as they were growing up. I mean, you saw the epidemic unfolding. Like you see more and more kids are obese. Like it used to be, when we were young, maybe you had a handful of kids that were overweight in your
little
class.
bit, yeah.
Now you have a
It's the
handful of
majority.
kids that are appropriate weight. I mean, it's so reversed. And, that's our future. That's the future of our world is our children.
And it's sad too seeing a lot of the parents, I will notice, especially when I'm pretty deep into prep or just in general, I will notice I do get a lot of side eyes, especially from, unfortunately, some of the other moms and stuff. And it's
like you don't fit in with them.
yes, and it's like, I'm just literally wearing a t-shirt and leggings or a t-shirt and shorts. I'm not showing up in my tightest set of spandex and a sports bra. I just, and it sounds bad, but it's like, I'm sorry I go to the gym. Like, I'm not trying to be here to
but
be
here's
the
the
center
thing,
of attention. I just,
even
that's
if you
just what I look like.
right, and even if you wanted to show up in your leggings, a sport bra with all Lulu decked out, whatever it may
Right.
be, you should be able to. And if you
also
go
work hard and be
yes.
proud of your body.
And if you go to the city and as much traveling as we've done, you see women like that. And it's kind of just the norm. But I think part of it is the community we live in, the small town. Majority of people are not in shape, not to the point where they would feel confident wearing certain things.
Right.
I
There's
mean,
a
I
lot
don't
of
walk
days
around
I
in
don't
that
feel
stuff.
confident wearing
Same.
certain things either.
And,
but
and I don't wear that stuff going around either. But my point is, we should be able to do whatever we want to do.
Yeah.
All moms should be able to dress how they want,
Yes.
say what they think, show up for their family and their kids and their friends and their spouse how they want to without
Yes.
the constant criticism.
No, we, as a mom, it's already hard enough, and it gets so tiring and so shitty that we're just honestly shitting on other moms constantly. It's like, why can't you just be proud of that mom because she's figured out how to make it work? Like,
Right.
you know how hard it is to go through all of that stuff and then to see what else she's doing. Like,
Right. And we don't know people's backstory. We don't know
Yes.
what maybe she just came from at home. We don't know what had just happened at work.
Yes.
We don't know maybe what her family's going through, or just the list goes on. And I
maybe
think we
this
just
is her safe place.
yeah, and,
And you're taking that away.
yeah,
You're sort of-
and
I
making her feel bad. It's like damned if you
Yes.
do, damned if you don't.
Yes.
If you're overweight, you're gonna get flack about that. If you're fit and healthy, someone's gonna shit on you about that too.
And I think too, kind of my last thing to kind of wrap things up, just coming from like my career perspective and stuff like that, like for me, at the end of the day, I would
Like,
say,
okay, we could wrap it up this way, unless it's probably similar to what you were thinking. Like, if you were to give your kids like that final piece of like advice.
we could, yeah, I'm gonna, let me finish this thought real quick, and then I think that's a good idea too, kind of biggest piece of advice, but actually coming from like my career and my perspective, at the end of the day, like, it's gonna make me cry. I want to be the parent and the mom that, like, if there's an emergency, like, I can show up for my kids, like, I can be the one that can save them and can get them out of danger and not have to rely on someone else, Granted, my husband's gonna show up all day of the week, every day, that's not a thing, but if I'm going out in public, I want to know that at the end of the day, I can save my kid's life. And I think that when you don't take care of yourself and you're not in shape, you're putting yourself and your kids in danger. Because, quite frankly, today's society and the world really kind of sucks. And if you can't show up and you can't save your family, you're a liability. And that's just not something that I'm okay with.
Well, here's the thing. Like, you demonstrating and role modeling a healthy lifestyle, you are saving your kids' life. You're saving their life every single day. When you think of it that way.
I agree. But on a less emotional note.
Now I feel like a jerk, because here I was like, here, let's do this, because I thought I knew where you were going, and I didn't know we were going there.
No, so on a less heavy note, advice that we either we give to our kids or our parents, other parents, like, my biggest advice is to show up for no one else but yourself, you know, because when you show up for yourself, you can show up for others. And I think that's the main priority. If you can't put yourself first, eventually it's gonna happen where it's just you just crumble. You know, you're the base of everything. So,
and mine kind of just piggybacks off of that. Ironically, it's you know, love yourself. Truly, just you know, love yourself, and then that will make you want to be unapologetically you, like for you. And so, yeah, awesome. Well, we missed Nelson today. But, you know, the thing about it, I just want to put in a quick plug for her. She's not a mom. If you ask her about kids, you know, she could tell you her own opinions. But you know, she shows up for young people in the way her and her husband, Chris, role model for the young athletes at their gym.
They have a lot of high school aged kids that they just, I mean,
they mentor and they train.
Yes.
And so while they may not be patients, while they may not be parents, they are still doing their part in society to help influence our younger generation. And I have no doubt that if they do become parents, that, you know, they're going to be the type 2 that, you know, Nelson would probably be saying very similar things as we are, is role modeling how you want your children to be, and putting good choices in front of them.
Yep. They follow you, whether it's good or bad, so why not make it good?
Yeah.
Creates less problems, too, when they become teenagers.
Well,
hopefully. Knock on wood. I don't know.
Girl, you spicy, wait. So. You wait.
Oh, shoot. But anyway, so to end it, thank you guys for kind of tagging along, for all the parents out there. And the same goes for dads. You know, this isn't, I know we kind of directed a lot of it towards moms, but there are single dads out there, or there are just, you know, dads in general, that I feel like also have a lot of the same struggles too. So that, you know, for the most part, this all applies to all the dads out there too.
Parenting's hard. Yep.
Show up for yourself so you can show up for your kids, and have a athletic dad bod, if that's the look you're going for. But anyway, so thank you guys for another episode. Subscribe, follow along, all that fun stuff, and we will see you guys next week, hopefully with a full trio and spice. So.
Yeah, and we'll be able to hear her adventures with these last couple shows. So
yeah,
that'll be interesting.
Weekend,
if you're a competitor, tune in.
Yeah, because this weekend is St. Louis, which is the biggest show in our area.
In the Midwest.
So, and she's backstage helping run it and all that stuff. So I think, not sure yet, but we might maybe next week or in the coming weeks kind of touch on that. So yeah, competitors, these next few episodes are probably going to be pretty important for you. Or if you want to compete, or you're just curious, or you just want to hear us ramble, all the things.
All the things.
But
all right.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.